Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Low Code Café, episode 94. Today, we are going to cover an interesting topic, address verification, and we are going to do this on top of the application that we started building a couple of editions ago, the Luggage tag application. But before that, let me give you a brief introduction to this event for the new people. This is a community event we are doing every week on Wednesday at the same hour. And it's a place where we get to demonstrate some new capabilities in our product, some techniques that we discover on the community forums. And the biggest chunk is building something with Plant an App, something final. This event is being recorded, as you noticed, and all past editions, so a lot of very good training sessions exist on our YouTube channel, so make sure to visit and subscribe. All videos will have like a nice table of content, so it's easy to browse inside the 1 hour in length videos. Okay, so the agenda for today, as mentioned, we'll have the stories from the trenches, and we'll hear it from Dale Warner, our head of support. And afterwards, Patrick Anderson will continue the hands-on development, extending the Luggage application. And speaking of which, maybe before passing it on to Dale, we had the pleasure to have some handcraft items built by Dale, and they are related to this application. So very cool, real use of technology. So we have these nice tags. I'm not sure how visible it is, but basically it's my name. It's handmade by Dale with lasers, so high-tech technology and passion. And on the back end, there's a QR code that is linked to the application that we are extending today. So I know that Dale meant this to be like a luggage tag, but I see myself going to conferences and sharing my LinkedIn profile with contacts as well. It's very cool and very unique. Thanks a lot, Dale.
Absolutely. Glad you enjoy it. Glad to be able to meet with you guys and have something in hand that you could enjoy. Let's see here. So from the trenches today, wanted to mention a couple of things. First of all, the development team has been really quite busy. We, in our previous, our last episode 2 weeks ago, we had announced we had released 20 different hotfixes. Last week, there were another 3 that went out. This week, another 9 that have gone out. And really, these are great that they've gotten on and been making such progress on these. So I thought I'd touch on them a little bit. Some of them you may not need, but some of them may be right in what you need. So first is that on the form builder, that if you were trying to implement minimum and maximum times, and especially when there were time zone differences, that now those are fixed properly. Also, that the minimum and maximum date options, if it's only a date that's being entered, then minimum and maximum time don't apply, so they've been removed. In our next one, clear caption, when you use the star ratings field, that clear caption lets you decide what value it has when nothing is selected. So that's a nice little enhancement. We've again in the area of dates, we've fixed where disabled dates in the future and past were not working in the Bootstrap 5 tool. A lot of these fixes are related to the Bootstrap 5 tool, again, just because we made so many things in the product. On the listing builder, this is a nice enhancement. Automatically, when you filter something, the listing filters options are automatically alphabetized. And you can search in there too for them if there's a lot, but being alphabetized, that's easier for your users to find them. fixed an issue where Bootstrap 5 templates were not working on pop-up. So Bootstrap 5 template wasn't doing pop-ups correctly. That's fixed. Enlisting the ability to filter on a null column in Form Builder, that a touch signature field was freezing in certain applications, so that certain mobile applications, so that's fixed. In our menu builder NavXP, that menu items could be expanded or couldn't be, and now they can in Bootstrap 5. Auto refresh, which is a great feature we've shown many times, but auto refresh wasn't working in some cases, and that's fixed. We added a nice, easy feature where you could save a workflow while you were in the middle of it, but if it was the first time you're doing a workflow, clicking to save multiple times ended up creating multiple copies. That no longer happens. And when you're doing a drop-down in listings, a drop-down with many items were being cut off if they went past the bottom of the listing container. So lots of little things, and I suspect we'll be finding little things. Again, just as a reminder, all these things, when you update to the next full version, you'll get all of them, but they're all going to be listed in your updates section, hotfixes, and you can get individual ones if they apply to you. Put in a plug. Friday, this same hour, we do our campfire. That's a meeting format instead of a webinar format, so you can talk to us, show us what you're working on, ask us questions about perhaps how we can help you and gain the knowledge of that community that shows up for that hour. So that's a really great one. If you're not involved in it, I encourage you to, and the link for that I'm going to post shortly. These are the links for this episode. So including some of our standard links down at the bottom, you see the Smarty address verification. Patrick is going to be talking about that one. And I'm going to be talking about the QR code display. So how to create a QR code. And so let me put these on the clipboard here for you now. All right. So I just wanted to do, I've added a couple of finishing touches before I turn this application over to Patrick for his work. And so we'll show you some of that action. Really, there's just a few things that we added, and I'm jumping in the middle here. But if you pick up our last episode, number 93, you'll see this is right where we left off. So one thing is that on our I've added a QR in the tokens area, a QR tag, and so when this comes up, when you click on QR tag, we can edit it to see what the definition of it is, and I'll explain what it is. We're passing in a parameter. It's called, you can pass in a parameter to a token by using this construct, TKN params colon, and then the name of what you want to pass in. So it's a tag that we're passing in. And so that can be substituted in. So when this gets evaluated, it's going to create some HTML that's going to, the result will be that it's a QR for the tag that is being displayed. So the QR has a couple of components. One is an image. So this is calling for its source. It's calling something called the API QRserver.com. And this is a service that's publicly available that will let you create a QR code. So I'm passing it and saying I want a QR code of this dimension, 150 by 150 pixels. The data that I want it to be is the URL of my site and the passing the individual tag that's going to be there. So this is going to create a QR tag that links to our site. But I've also added an anchor tag, a hyperlink to that same URL address. Then it's just going to make it easy for us to show how this is going to work if you happen not to be doing it by QR. So that's from a development standpoint, that's a building block that's set up, QR tag. And this is the result. When we're displaying I've added a column to our site. Let me move some stuff out of the way here. I've added a column, and I'll go into the listing to show how this column is configured. It's the QR column. And this was a add computed field. The value is QR:tag. That's the token we created. And the tag value we're passing in is whatever tag key I'm working on. That tag key comes from our data source. So every time that we get a new row with a new tag key, C0A, whatever, we have a QR code that's automatically created by the same thing. So you can either scan this, or for ease of use, I'm going to click this. But this, what's encoded in this tag is the HTML address, the web address to our individual tag that's been created. It goes to IdTag apps, plan an app, and it's going to the T page and passing in the tag value here. I've tried to keep these pages and names very short, as short as possible, so that the least amount of information got encoded into that QR code. So currently this pops up and says, this tag belongs to nobody. And so thinking about this, if somebody, if this was on a piece of luggage and somebody scanned it, they would see this belongs to nobody. The owner, though, has the ability to update. So we have an update button. So before I move on, I'm just going to show you this is all done with a very short form. We have an event that runs a SQL query that says, get all our data from app tag, where the tag key equals whatever tag key got passed in. And what I'm passing in, tag key, this SQL parameter at tag key corresponds to this tag key. And I'm passing in our get or session of the value of whatever T is, and with a default of blank. But hopefully they're passing in a valid, if they scanned the QR code, it's going to have a valid T code on it. It returns its data into a token called tag. And so then we're able to get to its properties. So that's how we're getting the data. And we're just displaying it in a very simple way here. We have static text that says you've scanned tag and whatever the value is, but now we can use the tag to get the info. So it's just displaying the info off of that tag that got created. The other thing that we have is a button, and that just button passes us, it just has one simple action to go to the update page. So we're sending it to the update page, and that's it. Not even having to pass what one we want to update, because we're taking advantage of that get or session. The session is going to be used to pass the tag key. So C0A25213 is going to be passed automatically as part of the session. So click on that. And because there's no password, the first time anybody could change this value. And so we could say, oh, this belongs to Joe Demo, and we're going to add a password. This is a very low security kind of application. I didn't take any effort to hide the password, but we could, but I just kept it as a very simple password thing. So now that we've set a password, this now says it belongs to Joe Demo. And in order to update it, when you go into the password, now there's a password set. You can't update it until you provide the password, and then everything appears. So we have a nice little update form, a display form, and a QR code. And that kind of fills in the blanks so that those QR code tags will work. And then Bogdan mentioned those that I happen to produce are wooden. I just put the QR code on a piece of wood using a laser raster image. It's just one of my hobbies. So we now have a little bit of custom plant and app swag. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Patrick and let him enhance the application from here.
Great, thank you, Dale. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so that is great stuff you've done there, Dale. And so the purpose here is to improve that sum, or add to it, not improve it, but add to it, because the idea is that with a luggage tag, of course, you want to have a physical address, or you could have a physical address so that that you get additional information when you're when you're checking the QR code for the luggage tag, so we're going to add a physical address to the data that's included for the luggage tag, and we're going to do a verification of that address with the USPS, and that's going to be done through a service called Smarty.com, and I'll take a look at that in just a second. I'm also really for fun, I'm going to collect longitude and latitude. Potentially in the future, we could do a mapping of customers if, with this information included. So I'm going to pull that in as well. So Smarty.com is a comprehensive address verification service, and it can be used worldwide. I'm going to be focusing just on their US address verification API today, but they do have worldwide address verification. So I'm going to build a PlantNap API that will access the Smarty API and process that response into simpler tokens that we can use in the form. So that's going to be the majority of what we're doing here, and then we're going to take that API and implement it into the Buy Now form that Dale created during our last low-code cafe. So what have I done so far? I have created a Smarty.com account that I'm going to show you, and I've created a. There's two different kinds of authentication that you can do with the API for Smarty. There's a ID and token verification, and then there's just a simple, and that doesn't have to be associated with any URL, and then there's a simple token authentication that has to be associated with a specific URL, and that's the kind of verification I'm using. And I've already created that for the IdTag website, and I've created a token on the site, and I'll show that to you here in a minute. So let's just actually let me go ahead and take a look at that now. So here we are back on the IdTag website that Dale was just showing, and you can see here I've added a new namespace, and this right here contains the token that I'm going to use to access the API. Okay, so now let me go take a look at the Smarty website. So this is the Smarty homepage here. You can see they have a try it free option, which is exactly what I'm doing. We're not paying for this right now. I'm just doing a free trial. And so I'm going to go to my account page, and here's my dashboard. You can see I have my free trial enabled, and my API keys are here. I'm not going to go to that page because it does expose my API keys as soon as I navigate to it. So I'm just going to show you that's where I can add tokens for specific URLs, and also get my my ID and token combination if I want to use that. I am going to navigate to the documentation page and take a look at the Cloud API reference. This is exactly what I'm going to be using today. So we're going to go directly to their API on their site. And you can see there's a lot of information here. One of my favorites on this page right here is the one that says, "Do not read this." Very clever, because of course, what are you going to do when you see that? You're going to click on it, and that's exactly what they want you to do. So this is just an overview of important things you should consider when you're using APIs, and it's a pretty good read. So if you happen to go here, I recommend taking a look at this. It's good information here. But I'm going to navigate to the US Street Address API, and this is where I got the information I needed in order to implement what we're going to look at now. One of the things that we're going to come back and take a look at a little bit later is these are your the values that you get back, the response values, and we're going to take a look at specifically the DPV match code in a minute, and I'll talk about that when we get there. So let me go back to my presentation just so I can keep myself in line here. So we're going to create the API to pre-process data from Smarty. We're going to put in our address inputs, create the server request to get the data, to pass the data to Smarty to do the verification. And first, we're going to take a look at the raw response. So let's get that much done here. So going back to my app here, I'll switch over to APIs, and go ahead and create a new API, and I'm going to call this, let me just get my inspiration application up here. So I decided just to call it access access Smarty API. It is going to be a GET request. And let's go to the input parameters. So I'm going to add, now what I did was I kind of just named these the same way that they're being passed to Smarty. So that's why we have these named the way they are. Just so that you're aware of what I'm doing here. And I'm going to leave them all as text. And let's see, we want a city.
I was just going to say, keeping that that naming the same is a really great thing to consider, just to keep the confusion level to a minimum.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And I want state. And finally, I want zip code. Okay, so we have our all text input parameters. Now the first action I want to add to my API is the server request. So I'm going to go here and type server request, or type SERV, which of course filters the list easily, so I can find server requests really fast. And my URL is going to be the Smarty Streets URL and /street dash address. And of course, I got that directly from this page. So, you know, that there it is right there. That's exactly what I'm putting in as my URL for my server request here. And we are going to do a GET method here. And I am going to take a shortcut here in the interest of time. And I'm going to just paste in my data, but I'll talk about what I'm pasting in here. So the auth token, so this is the token that I showed you earlier that I created that it's a constant token that contains the API token that I created specifically for idtag.apps.plantingapp.com. So that's where that's coming from, and that's what I need to pass to the API. I'm going to pass in my text input parameters, so street address and street address 2. Today we're not going to use street address 2, but just the idea that would be like a suite number or something like that is what you would pass in with street address 2. City, state, zip code. And these are 2 items that are required that need to be passed in. And let me just go back and take a look here at this so that you can see in the here. Well, they're not required, but they have what they do is they help. So I'm going to be doing. I'm passing in the kind of match that I want. And so this is actually, this does deserve a little bit of talking here. So I'm going to just talk about this briefly. So what I'm doing is telling Smarty Streets what kind of address, how strict do I want them to be in trying to match the address. And through a little of trial and error, I discovered that this one right here, and this is what I'm going to pass to them. So it will pass back, if it doesn't find a valid address, it'll pass back the same address that I sent to it as the response. And this makes things a little bit less complicated. But what I then need to do is to find out, okay, was the address it found valid or not? And that's where this DPV match code comes in. And this is going to come back to me in my response from Smarty Streets, the DPV match code. So I'm choosing the invalid option for match. And if I go here, you can see this is what the DPV match code is sending back. So Y is great. That means we have a valid complete address. N is not confirmed. S is not desirable because we don't have, we're missing some information. And D is not desirable also because it's missing secondary information as well. So I'm going to give you an address. I'll show an address that returns a value of D, and I'll show you an address that returns a value of Y. I'm going to accept in my implementation YD as those are going to be perfect. And what I'm going to not accept, so that's, and then this is the way I'm actually going to specify it. I'm going to specifically not accept a value of N or a blank or null value. Those are for DPV match. In that case, I'm going to tell the end user that their address was not verified. So let's switch back to our application.
And while you're doing that, we do have a quick question because it's on the data parameters. If you'll scroll to the top of your data parameters, there was street and street. I'm sorry, in your server request, the data parameters. We're just kind of curious about having street. Should there be street 2 or is it?
Yes, good question. Yep. No, it's actually the way it works is that you pass them both to the street variable, and it looks at that complete. So you could pass everything on one line, but the idea is that if you are collecting that, so say in our actual forms, which I'm not going to do today, but say in our actual forms we have a street address to, we could concatenate those on the same row and pass them both on street, or we can pass them separately like this, and it'll look at it all as one. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Great, good question. Okay, so let me just move down here a little bit, and we need to add a couple headers. We're going to do the content type header, which is pretty typical, and that is going to be application JSON. And we are going to add host. And this, honestly, the question might come up, but or if somebody knows, there, feel free to please jump in and say so. But this is required by Smarty, even though we're accessing their API. You have to have this in the headers of your requests. So I tried it without it, and it didn't work. So I'm putting it in, and I'm going to do, of course, an output to get the information back, and we're going to call that Smarty return. And let me just do I'm going to check, Dale, the thing that got you a few episodes ago. I definitely have my method in there. Okay, so yep, well, then now I'm going to, first I'm just going to add a raw response. So let's go to output and put a raw response here, and that is going to just take the straight output from the Smarty API. So let's save and test this the way it is. Okay, so the first one I'm going to do is an address that I think most people will be familiar with on the call. And I'm not going to put Avenue in there, which is I'm just going to put 1600 Pennsylvania, and we're going to do Washington, DC, and I'm not going to put a zip code in. So that's what I'm passing along there. So if I click on Get Response, I have an error. I thought I covered everything. What does it say? Authentication required. Well, it should be working, and I apologize. Let's see. Let me just navigate back to tokens for a second here. Go and I can just delete this afterwards, so I'm just going to take a look to make sure that my value is actually working. It is. Go back here and we'll do this live. It's okay. I'll get rid of this this particular one when I'm done. So I'm going to go to my account and navigate to my API keys and just confirm that I have idtag.apps. I copied and pasted it, so it should be right. plantinet.com.
Ending slash?
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's it. Let's try it. I don't have an edit option, so I'm going to just delete it. And I'll create a new key. And
while you're doing that, I'll just mention this is exactly, I love the technique. I often build little pieces like outputting to make sure the output of a given step is correct, which is what you're doing with your API. And then once that piece is done, because you can put the whole thing together end to end, and then if there's anything wrong in the middle, you got to figure out what's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So let me edit this. And there's my new API key, and save and test that, make sure I'm getting a value back. Now let's go back to APIs and take a look at this, and let's test it again. And just a note here, it'll take a little bit of so yeah, it probably would correct this for me, but I'm just, because I want to just see, I'm going to go ahead and correct it. But it will take a little bit of typos. But if you don't have like a really complete word in there, it'll reject it. So and you see, get response, and this time we have success. Good. So it must have been the slash that I had in my API key there. So you can see there's a lot of information here. So what I'm going to do is copy that, and we're going to take a look at it in, on Dale's favorite site. And so this is just codebeautify.org, and very useful. Use it all the time, and we're going to use it quite a bit today. So you can see this is the response we're getting back from Smarty Streets. And that is a lot of information, and we by no means need all of this, but I'm going to focus on this right here, delivery line 1. You can see it corrected it for me, so it gave me the full avenue and the quadrant of Washington, D.C. that we're in, southeast, and the full zip +4. I'm going to just mention it later, but you can see the DPV match code is D. And if you recall earlier when we were looking at the DPV match code options, D said that there was incomplete information. And of course, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is a big building, and it has a residence, but it also has multiple offices and suites and all kinds of places. So that's why we're getting back the DPV match code of D for that address we're putting in, because it, in order for a complete delivery to be done, they would really need more information. But for the purposes of our application, we're going to accept D. But we could take D and not accept it, and say that we need more information. Then we're also going to grab last line, and then we're going to grab the city name, the state abbreviation, and the zip code, and the +4. So these are all the values we're going for. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we're also going to grab the latitude and longitude, and we're going to get the DPV match code. So these are all the ones we're going for. But what we want to do in the API I'm creating is take this and make it a lot simpler, so that when we go to the form, we have a very simple approach. So going back over here, I'm going to edit our API and scroll down to the actions, and I'm going to add we're going to take a parse JSON into tokens. And this is very, this one's very straightforward. I'm gonna move it up here a little bit. All we need to do here is get our output token name, and we just need to put that here. So we're taking that JSON we got back that we just looked up on Code Beautify, and we're passing it in, and that's going to parse it into tokens. And we need to just make sure I get everything the same here. We need to do a base token name, and I'm calling that return address. And now I want to, I'm going to create a JSON object. So I'm just going to type JSON in here, my search, and do new object as JSON. I'm sure it's the same, but actually I want it, but this is going to be my response. So this is replacing the raw response. So I'm going to go over here just to be more clear and say new object as JSON, and drag that up here. And we need to just put in the values that we want to get. So I'm going to add a property here, and the first thing we're going to get is delivery line 1. And that value, so remember that we had that return address is my base token here, name here. So I need to put in return address, but I also need to make sure I map from the JSON that I have to the correct value I want. So going back to Code Beautify, we look and we have an array here, and the value we want is at index 0, and we want the delivery line 1 value. So if you look at my configuration here, I'm doing return address is my base token for the parsing, parsing my JSON into tokens. That's the base value. We're looking for index 0, and the value of delivery line 1 is going to be our value. And I'm just going to, once again, I'm going to maintain these same names here.
So you're just flattening out the return that you're getting back from Smarty Stream. Yep. Making it really easy to consume.
And so the other one I want to do here is last line. And that one is exactly the same as the one I just did. So last line. Okay, so I'm going to save that like that, and we're just going to take a look at this. So let me save and test it. And we'll stick with, actually I'm gonna do a different address now. And this one is near my home, but it's not my actual home. But it is a close by neighbor. Nope, that's wrong. But you know what, actually probably it may correct that, but I'm just gonna make sure I get this right and do Maryland there, and click on get response. And so it has corrected it. The actual address is 6144 Encounter Road, and it's put in the zip +4 there as well. So I know that this is working now. So now I want to go back and edit this again. And now I want to really get busy with the data that we want to get back here. So go back into my new object as JSON, add, and we are going to roll. So I want to put city name in here. I'll talk in a few minutes because I expect the question to come up. I'll talk in a few minutes about why I'm putting even though I have all the data I need here, I'm also putting city name and state. I will talk about that more. But let me pause a moment here because what's important to note here is that I now city name, if we go back and look at Code Beautify, I'm at index 0 and the item components, but now I need to map a value within components, which is this one here, city name. So here you can see my syntax for that is my base token name from my parse tokens, return address, index 0 dot components dot city name. So that's what's going to give me the actual city name, that value that's being returned. And but I'm putting everything into a top level token in this JSON object, so it makes it much simpler for me to get. So next I'm going to put in state abbreviation. And we'll add zip code. And once again, these are within the components section of the return. And
yep, take a look at that left one there.
Yep. I'll fix that in just a second. It looks like I didn't actually copy zip code, did I? Okay. There we go. And then the +4 code. And go ahead and grab the latitude. And talk about that for a second. So with latitude, going back to the JSON viewer, now I'm in a different section of my array that was passed back. So index 0 and in the metadata section and latitude and longitude, there they are. So that is where I am there. Add the longitude. Oops, wrong one there. And once again, so you can see 0.metadata.latitude and longitude. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, I want to grab the DPV match code. So I'm going to call that DPV match code. And once again, here we're changing the section of the JSON, the return JSON that we're in. So I'm going to 0.analysis.dpv match code. And once again, I get that from right here. So I'm at index 0, analysis, and the DPV match code is the value that I want. All right, so there we are. I can go ahead and delete the raw response now. I don't need that there. It's not going to, it's last, so it's not going to return anything anyway, but just clean it up. All right, so save and test this, and we'll go back to 6144 encounter. And I'm going to do that for fun, okay? We'll see how it works. And we're looking in Maryland and get response. And you can see that it has not worked. So it didn't like that misspelling that I just did there. So my DBP match code is empty, and we'll see how I'm dealing with empty values in a bit. So I'm going to back that up there. I am going to get rid of Maryland, and I'm going to put in the zip code. And oh, that's actually probably the issue there. I bet I didn't even realize I did that misspelling. But
I thought you were doing that on purpose.
No, I did the Columbia one on purpose, but not that one. Okay, so now I have a not a good response. Why? What am I doing there now? Well, let me just. Now it likes it. Okay.
21045.
Oh yes, the wrong. So I right. So it corrected the zip code. If I had put in 21045 here, it probably would have worked. So, you know, there's a little bit. That's why when we look at the form, we're going to you know, make sure that people do a verified address. We're not going to allow ones that don't have the confirmed Y or D address. Okay, so we have a working API now. So I'm just going to check in with myself here in the presentation. So we have gotten through creating the Plant and App API. We used Code Beautifier to check things there. Now we're going to go and edit the entity to add our values here. So let me just go and we'll go to entities, and we're going to look at the order entity and edit that. And
you gotta have a place to store this stuff.
Yes, exactly. So it's got to go somewhere. So we're going to first put in and add property and a little bit of problem here, my other end here. There we go. Okay. So we want city. And state. And zip code. And latitude and longitude. So those are that's all the data we're collecting. Let me just make sure I got the street address, city, state, zip code, latitude, and longitude. Not really essential, but I will just go ahead and arrange these a little bit just so that I feel better about it. State, low city, and zip code.
So of course, this will update our listings and our forms to have those columns in those.
Yes. It won't. Of course, it won't update the buy now form, which is the one I'm actually going to edit. But it will update the actual entity page. So now let's take a look at.
We did. Yep.
Yep.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, no problem. So there we go. We have our new data fields in our page here. And so now, next on the list, we've updated the entity. Now we're going to go to the buy now form, and we're going to add the fields for the address data. And well, I'll just go ahead and get to it so that we can hopefully get mostly the way through this. Okay, so I'm here on the buy now page. I'm going to edit the order form. And the first thing I want to do is add fields. So I'm going to add some of the, take a little bit of shortcut here and add, let's see, street. with the predefined fields, I'm going to add city, and I'm going to add the postal code. There we go. And then for state, I'm actually just going to make it a regular text field just for simplicity here. So I'm going to just do a text box, and we're going to call that state. All right, and I'll do a little bit of layout change here. So we're going to pull street up here below phone number, city, postal code, and we'll put state in between city and postal code. All right. And actually, I think I will change the, if I go back here to our postal code, I'm actually going to call that zip. And now I think we're matching up with my inspiration here. Okay, so then back to here, I just want to, okay, so I'm going to add a static text field. This is where we're going to actually show the user their verified address. So I'm going to call it, just in the interest of making sure I don't change anything too much, I'm going to call this verified address. And we're going to take that and put it right below my last address field there. And going back to fields. And let's see, I think that for where I am now, that's good. Now let's add a button. All right, so now our button is actually going to be where the magic starts happening. So I'm going to add this, call this check. And once again, I'm just going to make sure I'm naming everything the same. Check address and continue. And for this, I'm going to go down to the on-click handler. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to execute that API that I created. So choose execute API method here. And we're going to choose the API we created, which is access Smarty API. And okay, so this is important here. The content, the type I want to, the response type I want to hear is content only. So this is going to allow me to use the parse JSON into tokens option here. So I'm going to choose that. And then I'm going to call the output token address. And now we're going to parse JSON into tokens here.
You need the method, the inputs to that. When do we set that up?
Yes, we're going to do that. Yep. I'm just getting some things in here. Yep. But yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll do that now. Okay, so we are going to get street address 1 and get the, I want that, get city and state and zip code. And these are the names of my fields that I created.
On the left-hand side, those are the inputs to the API that we've...
Right, yep. So yeah, you recognize these from the API inputs, yep.
On the right, this is what's coming from the form. So we're putting our form values to the API.
Yep, exactly. All right, so now we're parsing that into tokens, and I'm going to call the output of that. I'm going to call that returned address, and I'm going to add a tokens, create update tokens, and we're going to take the verified address which is the, so we're creating a token here called verified address. This is the name of the static text field you saw me that I just create. And I'm going to put in some text here. And so this is this is actually what's going to go into that text field. So this is what will be displayed to the user. So we're going to look at the delivery line 1 and the last line. And so that's going to be their street address, and then the city, state, and zip code will be included in this value right here. So that's what they're going to see. And then just a little message here using this verified address helps keep accurate records, so they can improve it or edit. So that's what we're going to give to them. And then we're going to just do a quick update on the form. So I'm going to use the update form data Ajax here, and I just want to take a quick look here. So verified address, I don't need the match yet. I just want to get to see that we have the address there. Okay, so let's save this and do a reload and do just a little bit of a quick test here. So and all right. So I didn't move the check address button. I need to move it up, but let's go ahead and check it. And we have your address has been verified as. So that's working as expected. Okay, so we are good to go there. That's nice to know. So now we can move along with some of the additional logic here, and getting close on time, but still have some, so that's good. Okay, so now going back to the presentation, we've gotten this form where we've tested and we are getting a verified address in the form. So now I'm going to add a hidden field that's going to be called match. And this is what we're going to use to start creating the logic of is the person allowed to continue or not? And we're going to add another update tokens action. So let me go back here and go to the check address and continue button. And first I want to add the field, add a hidden field with a custom value, and we're going to call that match. And go down here, and I'm going to clone this create update tokens here, drag that up here. And so what we want to do now is I'm going to add to this one here. Actually, I can do that. Just get rid of that one now. I'm going to add here match. And this is where we're going to access that DPV match code. So returned address DPV match code. Yep. And that's going to be put into the hidden field called match when you check the address. And now I'm going to clone this with that in there already so that I have it. And here it is. Let me drag it up and collapse this so it's out of the way. And so what I want to do now is I'm just going to change the value that we're putting into the verified address field. So here it's just going to say we're unable to verify the address you supplied. And we're still going to pass the match code to the front end. But now we need logic because we don't want both of these create update tokens to run. So my logic for the for this one is going to be, and let me just also label these so that it's more straightforward for us to understand what's going on. So this is going to run when we have an invalid address. So the returned address DPV match code equals N. Remember when we looked at the values earlier, N is not good, and also it can return a null value as well. So I'm using the string that is null or white space. That's going to cause this to happen as well. We're just going to say that we were unable to get a correct value. For this one here, we're going to do basically the opposite. Put in my condition here. So DPV match code does not equal N, and the DPV match code is not null or empty. And that's going to show them their verified address message there. Okay, so let's see, did I plan on getting any farther at this point? Right, so we're going to go ahead and just do a quick test here, see where we are. And there we go, save that and refresh it. And I'm gonna do, and there, and just do a quick check. So I'm confirming now that I'm unable to verify the address, and I can edit it. And we'll do keep MD, and I'll do 21045 and check address, and the other option is working. So I confirm my logic is good now. So going back to editing. Next, we want to allow the user to approve the verified address. So how am I doing on time here?
Yeah, so almost got about just kind of coming down to the end. So
yeah,
I think what we're seeing here is that you've done the heavy lifting. You've talked to Smarty Streets and gotten it to give you good address information.
Yep.
Tell you that it's not. And so then what we do with it after that. Tell us where you were going to go.
So, yep. So next I'm going to put an approve button in here so that the user can say, yes, this is the address I want to use, or they have the option. So as I put in the text, let me just close that. You can approve the verified address or make changes and check your address again. So if the returned address they see here doesn't quite match what they know to be the correct address, they can edit up here and then check address again. And so I put logic on here so that it's still available, but the approve button will not be available once they've approved their. It won't be available until they have a verified address in place, and then once they've approved it, the approve button will go away, and then these fields here will be filled in with the verified values, and that's where. So just to make it very clear about the importance of all the different parts of the API, that's where I guess go back and look at the API. That's where the fact that I'm pulling in the So far, you've only seen me use the delivery line 1 and the last line, but I'm going to use the city name, state abbreviation, zip code, and the +4 code to then put the values into the form, and then these fields become disabled once these values have been entered into the form, and we have a verified address. They become disabled, and then they get to continue on with purchasing the product. That's where we're headed. Perfect.
So while it takes hard to squeeze it in, especially when my segment takes a little long,
that's fine. Yeah.
See clearly where you're going. We can perhaps show the final state in our next episode. But
yep.
Very good.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Bogdan, are you available to close us out?
Of course. Cool. Very, very cool techniques, Patrick. And I understand this is a technique you learned from one of our customers. So that's also very interesting.
Yes, and I wanted to give the Smarty Streets was actually shared with me by the USPS organization. I did mean to give a shout out to them earlier, and I forgot to do that. Thank you.
That's sure. So I think this is also an interesting concept. How these ideas can be let's say ported to other solutions. Very, very interesting. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Dale, for putting this in place for us. And thanks, everyone, for taking the time to be here. And next week, we are on again. Bye for now.
Very good. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.